Juraj Kralik joins the show once again to tell us his thoughts on the Dallas Stars free agency on Monday. We'll touch on the NHL draft and plenty more next on Locked On Stars.
You're Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, Stars fans, and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Joey Erickson, former producer of 105 Through the Fan. Please be sure to subscribe. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. And as always, thank you so much for making us a part of your day and making us your first listen. I would like to welcome back to the show Juraj Kralik once again. It's been about a month since we last talked, and I woke up to an Instagram or Twitter DM, with Juraj ready to talk about the Dallas Stars free agency. And I said, all righty, let's go. Juraj, how have you been, my friend?
Absolutely. Thank you, Joey. I mean,
Mhm.
the free agency was a whirlwind, but I was good. Honestly, I got some feelings. And last time we had a talk, I think it was a very good talk that we actually projected the moves that could happen at the draft, at the free agency as well. So now they happened, and now we can maybe go through it. And if we are happy, if we are not happy, so I think this could be a good talk.
Absolutely. I'm ready to dive right in. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So I want to say this. I don't want to push this narrative that Dallas is going to be a bad team next season or this team has cratered by any stretch of the imagination. And maybe some of my frustrations on Monday came from the expectations of maybe going out and getting that big fish like a Matt Roy, or going out and getting somebody like Montour. And maybe many other Stars fans can feel this way. But as it played out on Monday, it felt panicky. It felt a bit rushed from Jim Nill and the Stars to just get bodies in the building. And I don't necessarily hate the signings or the players. Matt Dumba, Lyubushkin, and Smith are good NHL players. It's not that I have a ton of concerns about what they are as players, even though I do on a few, but it's the money that was given to them. It felt a bit like an overpay, but I also realized they just needed to get bodies in here. And there are plenty of positives that I want to get to here in this episode, but we'll start with the negatives and get the complaints out of the way. What did you just make of the free agency period for Dallas on Monday? Because it just felt like there was a lot that was left to be desired after I think we had a lot of expectations that Dallas was going to go out and just address these needs with a high-end talent and a high-end player, and we got this instead.
Yeah, I think you made a really salient point there that it was about the expectations, and the expectations were probably not met. When we look at it fan perspective, we had Chris Tanev last month. We were like 90% sure the Stars going to re-sign Chris Tanev, and we won't even have this discussion, right? So once they traded the rights of Chris Tanev, then we thought, okay, so probably, yeah, Toronto is offering something crazy, so we don't want to do anything crazy. And there are still very good crop of D-mans out there, like Brad Pesce, Matt Roy, you mentioned, like even Alex Carrier possibly, or maybe Sean Walker. There are these kind of players that I was sure Jim Nill is gonna go after, and maybe he did. I don't want to like blame him that he didn't. He for sure he did, and maybe the numbers just didn't add up. The reason, it was around 7 p.m. local time here, and I went for my evening run, and the Stars have only signed like Matt Duchene so far. So I go on a run, I come back in 30 minutes, and then I read that they signed Lyubushkin and Dumba as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't know the terms about Dumba, but I know the terms about Lyubushkin, and some Russian insider tweeted that it is 3-year deal for $10 million. And I honestly could not believe my eyes, because don't get me wrong, the kind of player that Ilya Lyubushkin is, the Stars probably need. I think that's undisputable. And now, the day after, I mean, I kind of processed it, the information, and I see why Jim Nill did it. I could see a way why he signed a player like Lyubushkin. And we can go into that. I mean, there are some good things about him and some intriguing things when it comes to potentially even pairing with Miro Heiskanen. Bear with me on this. But Matt Dumba and Lyubushkin, it's so sort of feel it's. I felt the panic even from the press conference Jim Nill had. I mean, he sounded panicky. I don't want to be like, I don't want to go into paranoid mode, but he sounded a little bit like stressed or panicked. I don't know. Maybe it was just my feeling. And yeah, I don't have a problem with Lyubushkin that much. At 3 million, yeah, 3.25, it's a bit of a problem. And when you consider it's a 3-year deal, I mean, we go into a territory where I could possibly rather have Ryan Suter for the one last year, because it started so good. It started with the buyout of Ryan Suter. The Matt Duchene deal is actually kind of perfect when you think of it.
Yeah.
And then it kind of maybe fell down a little bit. So overall, I don't think they will be worse. I went through like projected opening night roster. I have like some sort of a general idea of what they will sign Thomas Harley for, so we can also go into that. But I think they will be better than they were on the opening night last season.
Okay.
Because even then they didn't have Chris Tanev. They have They have Ryan to pair with Miro Heiskanen. They had Jani Hakamp on the team, so they will be better. And they will be better mostly because of Wyatt Johnston could be better. There will be Marek Borg, but they won't be that much better than we thought they will be. That's just, and that's the point of the expectations that you mentioned. That it didn't meet the expectations, but hey, the Capitals didn't win the cup in 2017 when everybody thought they will, and they win the cup the next year when everybody like write them off. So we don't know. But overall, it's like complicated.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point too. And even somebody like me to realize that my expectations were one thing, and yeah, they didn't meet expectations necessarily, but it doesn't mean they're going to be bad. And I don't think they will. I have reservations about saying they're going to win the West again, or maybe possibly winning the Central with what some other teams have done, but it's not like they're cratering and they're not going to be in the playoffs or in that conversation, at least. I like your point too. You bring up the Jim Nill interview, and I'd love to share my perspective on it as well. From what I got out of it, it felt a little like we're just going to push this down the line a bit further, where we can extend guys like Johnston, and then we can extend guys like Stankoven, who of course are going to be due, and they have to get paid. And then we're going to sort of figure out the back end. But I'm curious, did you get that feeling? I know you said maybe it was panicky, but does it feel like maybe they're just kind of pushing the defensive problem down the line, maybe, instead of going out and really addressing it? And you also said, and I think it's a great point, some of the contracts that were given out, I just don't see Dallas even being in the same atmosphere. There was some term and some money given out to some of these players, and it's not for the lack of effort from the Stars, so I don't blame them there. It's just sometimes it doesn't meet up. And unfortunately with the cap, it has to be that way. But it just felt like, hey, we're going to wait down the line, and then we'll pay our guys, and then we'll start to figure it out from there.
Yeah. Two thoughts on this. Like, there were guys that I think if Jim Nill was able to, or let's say the players say yes to Dallas on the same terms, Matt Roy contract, it's not that bad. It's 6 years for 5.8 million. It's actually a very good contract, I think. And for example, Sean Walker is even
sign
better
me up for that
in Carolina. Yeah. So I would too. So maybe he offered those players these kind of money, maybe at least one of them, and maybe they just picked somebody else. So then he needed to like get on the plan B, because these players, Matt Dumba, Ilya Lyubushkin, sound like plan B, and that's okay. I mean, I could see sometimes it just doesn't work out. That's totally right. I could see Jim Nill basically signing these type of players. I'm okay with Matt Dumba. I think it's slightly overpaid a guy, but 2 years at 3.75, it's palatable at least. Lyubushkin for 3 years is I would say totally misunderstood on my side, because if you have a guy like Lyubushkin, he was projected to earn something along the lines of Jani Hakanpää, has probably the same impact as Jani Hakanpää, and you give him not only double of what Jani Hakanpää is making, but also 3-year term, that's a little bit crazy to me. And I saw this notion that it's probably driven by Pete DeBoer, that they want to be a bit bigger, a bit nastier on the back end. So that fits this mold. I mean, and maybe that's the reason why they probably didn't want to go for a guy like Sean Walker, who is a puck-moving guy, who is not that I would say unpleasant to play against. On the contrary, Ilya Lyubushkin is very unpleasant to play against. So that was probably the idea, because I'm sure Jim Nill and Pete DeBoer talks. I mean, we talked about this last time we had an episode, like they are interconnected. Sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it works. So I think it's I would give them like C- grade. So it's not like totally bad.
Yeah.
They will be a bit better, but they could be a much more better, especially when you consider what Edmonton has done. I mean, they did for me, they are the winners of the free agency for what they for actually what the space they had and what kind of players they signed. They did an almost perfect job. And it's funny because like they don't have a designated GM at this point. Just Jackson doing moves from his living room, so it's really funny as well.
Yeah, no, Edmonton made a couple of great signings, and then Nashville, for the space they had, they went out and got some players, obviously with Stamkos and Marchessault. So to bring it back to Dumba a bit more, and I actually loved your tweet from the other day about Lyubushkin, where it's like, well, you have Petrovic. Like that is your Lyubushkin in some ways, even though Lyubushkin does have a bit higher of a ceiling. With Dumba, where I get a bit confused and it gets murky is, well, you buy out Suter to pay Dumba more, in my opinion, to fill in a pretty similar role to for the most part. And that's where it gets confusing for me, because Dumba played in 5 games with Tampa in the playoffs. He played 15 minutes, no points and -2. It's not atrocious by any means, but it just feels like, well, you could have gotten that out of Suter, probably more minutes. And I know they're completely different players, and he's 39 years old. You could have got that out of Petrovic, frankly, from what I saw in the postseason. I think you could give him 15 minutes a night and be pretty decent. But there obviously was a philosophy for the Stars to get bigger, and I will give them credit there, because I've clamored on it all offseason. They need to get bigger. They need some more grit. And that's where a lot of the positives come in. These guys like to throw their weight around, and they're really physical, and they're competitive. So, I have no reservations there. I think though for the type of players they are, I think they're going to make an impact for Dallas. I guess I wish it came in a different package in a lot of ways. I wish there was just a little more there, and I think a lot of Stars fans feel the same. But I also mentioned this heading into Monday. Dallas did not have the luxury to be picky. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is obsessed with finding you ways to save money on tickets. It's also the authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. And with killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seats, and their lowest price guaranteed, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And it's not just the MLB. You got to get ready for the NHL season. The Dallas Stars schedule is out. Pick the ones that you want to go to and get prepared for some hockey, ladies and gentlemen. Also, comedy, theater, you name it, they have it on Game Time. So take the guesswork out of getting tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And after they missed on big names or some of the bigger players that were available, they just kind of had to go get bodies. And another positive, I think, after signing these 3 guys on defense is, well, now you have sort of a balance. You could have a balance with right shot and left shot, and that could be huge for Miro, as you mentioned. And maybe Miro can help Lyubushkin and Dumba can play with Lindell or Harley, whoever it is. And yeah, there is something to be said for that. And I think maybe Pete DeBoer had a lot to say. It's like, okay, you have to get me at least 2 right shot defensemen so we can have some balance. I think that was big for them. And we need to get more physical because bringing Nils back, I guess makes sense. It's just, I have no confidence they're going to use him, right? Like, should I?
Yeah, it was funny. Like they brought him back because I really thought he will sign for something less than his qualifying offer would be. Because from what I gathered, there were like not many suitors for him, so Dallas had the open lane to sign him. So why sign him for like 1.25? I mean,
a raise.
It's a fair market value. Like,
yes,
I don't want to like go into that. It's okay value for a player like Nils Lundkvist, because even though Pete DeBoer doesn't trust him at all, he's still a very good player, and he has a potential of like actually exploding possibly this season. I don't want to sound too optimistic, but I think I mentioned this to you on our last episode. Like, I see some parallels with Ryan Ellis as a player, and Ryan Ellis also had his like first big season when he was age 23 or 24, where Nils Lundkvist was going to be. And if not, I still think he is the first guy to be traded away, because that's what I thought. When I saw he wasn't qualified, I was a bit skeptic, but I still thought like Jim Nill wouldn't like throw this asset away for nothing, right? So I kind of expected to bring him back. Only if it's only for trading him away during the season, that's totally fine, because I think they will be fine on the back end to start the season, and then possibly they will look for one, I would say, really good, impactful defender, possibly right-handed. Think of a guy like Rasmus Andersson in Calgary, for example, who has 2 years left at 4.5 million per. Calgary is rebuilding. He probably won't be signing there, and they will want to get assets for him. So I can see Stars trading Lundkvist and maybe first round pick, maybe add Radek Faksa to make the cap works for a guy like Rasmus Andersson. You could have a Ryan Bigsell actually going up, as well as Thomas Harley did when he had his begin entrance to the NHL after the trade deadline. So there is still, I don't want to overreact, because there are still ways to improve this decor, and it's not really important how does it look on October 12th. It's really important how it looks in April or May next year. And when you touch on a really good point on the handedness. So right now, like, I don't want to scare off Stars fans, but I really can see, possibly not from the get-go, because I think Pete DeBoer will want to trust Harley with Heiskanen together, but I can really see Miro Heiskanen paired either with Matt Dumba or even Ilya Lyubushkin, because Lyubushkin is this sort of a very specific player who actually has the best on-ice impact results when he plays with talented left-handed puck-moving defensemen. He was at his best when he was paired with Morgan Rielly, and Morgan Rielly was at his best statistically when he was paired with Ilya Lyubushkin in Toronto. So I asked some scouts who are actually covering Toronto a bit more closer, and he is a bit of an enigma. They were also scratching their heads about the contract. But actually the impacts could be really funny. This is like Roman Polak 2.0 basically. And you could have Heiskanen playing with Lyubushkin to start the season. You could have Thomas Harley with Matt Dumba, and you could have Esa Lindell with Nils Lundkvist. And it doesn't look that bad, especially if you can offset it with a really good forward core that Stars had. So I was negative last day, yesterday, because I was expecting a bit more. So once I like simmered it down on me a little bit, I see some positives. I don't want to look on cap friendly right now, although I won't be able to, possibly for tomorrow, because I don't want to see like this Ilya Lyubushkin for next 3 years thing on it. But let's just say they didn't get that much worse as it looked the first moments yesterday.
I'll give you some credit to bring me down as well a bit. I think I needed to be talked off the ledge some, and I think a lot of Stars fans feel the same way about what transpired. on Monday, certainly. So it'll be interesting. And look, I'm totally okay with letting it play out for the first 2 months of the season, and I'm happy to eat crow. Right, I'm happy to eat crow if everything looks good to go. But I think you make up a good point, and maybe this is also where some more frustrations and some criticism come in for me. Is it still feels like they need a Chris Tanev sort of player that they need to add once again at the trade deadline. It's like, oh man, it just, I wish we were able to get him nailed down. And then you feel really, really good. Unfortunately, money in term, of course, did not match up. So there still is a lot of work to be done on that front. And it gives us plenty more to discuss about. I want to move on to some of the other signings because they were really fantastic. I mean, Duchene at $3 million is phenomenal for what he provides. I thought he was going to warrant a bit of a pay raise, and that brought some concerns. Sam Steele, that was a fair offer after not qualifying him. That's a great get back. And Casey DeSmith, I think for the cap hit, it's going to be a great backup goaltender for Jake Ottinger. So what are your thoughts on Duchene, Steele, and DeSmith as well? I'll throw the whole trio at you and let you go.
Yeah, all these three signings are exceptionally good. I mean, Matt Duchene signing for 1 year gives the Stars the flexibility they're gonna need next year when Wyatt Johnston's contract will be up, Jake Ottinger's contract will be up. So that's very good. And also the AAV is fantastic.
Yeah.
I know Stars fans may be kind of soured on the guy after the playoffs, and me as well. Like, we were totally on this Duchene hype when it was, I don't know, December, January. Like, everybody wanted him to get re-signed, and everybody was thinking about $6 million offer for 4 years, something like that. So this is actually a really, really good deal, and it gives them the flexibility they need. Sam Steele, the same. 1 year deals are always good in these sorts of players. 1.2 million is actually really fine market. I would say under market value even. And Casey DeSmith, honestly, I think it's a good signing. Like 3 years, yeah, that you could say it's a bit much. But if he proves himself, you're gonna need a cheap backup next year as well. Once Jake Ottinger's deal will be maybe around 7, maybe around 8 million. Think maybe what Juicy Saros signed for. So think maybe 7.5, maybe 8 million for 7 or 8 years. So it's going to be a pretty huge deal.
Yeah.
And you're going to need some, I would say, quality and cheap backup. So, I mean, when the reporters asked Jim Nill about Casey DeSmith, he actually said, well, he's an NHL goalie. So what do you want? Like, I need to sign. That's where I thought, okay, he really needed to sign somebody.
Yeah.
And for 1 million, yeah, he's an NHL goalie. So I think it's good. I don't know if he's upgrade on Scott Wedgwood, but he's definitely cheaper. So at least for the 0.5 million that they're gonna save, and they're gonna direly need it on this Thomas Harley extension that they still didn't make. But I think they're gonna sign him soon enough.
Yeah, they certainly need a goaltender. And look, they didn't. Matt Murray will no longer be with Texas. He didn't re-sign, so they needed somebody because they don't have a ton of depth at that position. So Otter obviously is supposed to be the guy here for the next decade or so, or at least 8 years, as you mentioned with that big contract. I had someone pose this to me, and I want to pose it to you as well. Just obviously we're 2 months from the season getting rolling, but where do you think Dallas stands in the West possibly, or the Central? Because my concerns, as we've kind of touched on, is in March or in April when the playoffs roll around. I don't think this is on the back end, at least, because the offense is going to be fine. I think the offense is going to carry you for most of the regular season. But if it dries up like we saw last year, where the offense isn't, just firing at all cylinders, you're running into some big issues. And I have trouble seeing them as contending in the Western Conference, at least in the postseason. I think they'll be fine in the regular season. Most teams are. And then the big question is, and what really all Stars fans are worried about is, okay, it's a Stanley Cup time, right? Your window's here. Like, can you get over the hump? So where do you see Dallas standing in the West at this point?
I mean, it's gonna be really fascinating because the Central division is wide open. I think
Mhm.
Colorado is actually every team has its own problems, right?
Yeah.
Colorado has its own problems with Landeskog and Nichushkin. They
Nishushkin, yeah.
just signed Eric Brandstrom, which is at 900K per year, and it's actually really good depth signing. And I honestly gonna think their D-man, even though they are small, they're gonna somehow make it. So Colorado is gonna be up there. I think Dallas will be up there as well, just because the quality they still have we cannot ignore.
Mhm.
Uh, Winnipeg is still a very good team as well, and I wouldn't count out Utah actually. They have a
Yeah.
sneaky good team, and
Mhm.
when you consider this, I would say newbie energy that Vegas had in their
Yeah.
first year,
Aggressive. Aggressive.
aggressive,
Mhm.
like they're gonna have a chip on the shoulder every player, like the fans will be crazy. And also Nashville, because you mentioned how they stocked up. I'm not that huge on Nashville. Maybe they will be good next year. Yeah,
Mhm.
Stamkos gonna be huge, maybe Marchessault mostly. But I just don't see how like these moves like move the needle in the
Okay.
long run.
Mhm.
Yeah, they can make a playoffs. They can even win the Central, but I
Yeah.
don't see them like going way too like further in playoffs. So, and yes, there is still like the usual suspects like Minnesota's and St. Louis's and Chicago. Chicago could be better, and I think St. Louis is gonna finish the last in division this year. So that's like my prediction.
Okay.
So I'm not too worried about them. But honestly, if you could ask me like who's gonna win the Central, uh, color me biased, I'm gonna still say Dallas, but it's gonna be really, really fascinating because there are 4 or 5 teams that could win it. Honestly.
All right, Uri. I was scrolling through Twitter. There is some breaking news that just dropped. This
Oh,
came
really?
from Frank Cervelli. The Dallas Stars are trading Radek Faksa to the St. Louis Blues. So I'm thinking that's Parayko. Maybe it's Falk, Krug, possibly, right? If you're looking at defenders, we'll have to keep an eye on this. This is obviously very fluid, but this just dropped in the middle of this episode. I'm going to
This is
continue to update and
this is
see what's
actually
going on.
really funny. Like I just tweeted to some friends of mine, like I expect Nils Lundkvist and Radek Faksa to be traded this season. So I honestly didn't think it's gonna happen today. That's why we were talking. I
Yeah.
even posted my opening night roster like 1 hour ago, like projected one, because I didn't think they're gonna move Radek Faksa this soon. But this is actually good news
Hmm.
for Stars fans, because we also like we know how Radek Faksa. I love the guy. He's from Czech Republic, from Opava.
Hmm.
He has a really nice family, and he was. Many people said he's gonna be a Stars lifer. I didn't feel like the same passion for it, because I was looking at the contract. Like Radek
Hmm.
Faksa was like the last bad contract the Stars had until they signed Ilya Lyubushkin. Yeah, but I can say like he's gonna fit in the St. Louis and what they are trying to do like a glove. He really
Yeah.
fits this St. Louis type of way, the type of play that they are playing. I'm really intrigued about the return. It could be only a pick just to clear out some cap space. I can see it as
Yeah. For
well,
Harley.
because for Harley
Hmm.
mostly, because if you clear out some cap space, then you can possibly sign Thomas Harley even to a longer term. So, and if you have some players like coming back, it could be Parayko, as mentioned. Yeah, I like that. That will be really interesting. But San Luis will have to eat money on that, so I'm not really
Yeah.
sure if they are eager. So let's just keep tracking this, because this is really fascinating stuff.
Yeah, I didn't think Foxa was going to be tough to move just because the type of player is he kind of would fit anywhere, right? And a veteran guy that just plays a bottom six role and he's good on the dots. Like a lot of teams could use someone like that if they're trying to move. I guess the issue would be is you're probably not going to get a ton of a ton back for him. So, and as you mentioned, this could just be a cap space move. I'm just getting a bit over the head of my heels here and thinking like, oh, maybe Parayko, maybe they could grab Falk or somebody like that. But yeah, it could just be a salary dump to extend Harley. So we'll keep an eye on that. And it's funny because I was going to ask you, like, where do they go from here? Maybe Jim Nill has still something in his back pocket. Where he can make a move to maybe get somebody in here. But so that's the news.
Actually, I would say the blueprint that I wanted to tell you, or I think, is to trade, as I told you, Nils Lundkvist and the first round pick possibly, and Radek Faksa to make the cap work for impactful defenseman or impactful player on D. So this fits the mold. So even though if it's for impactful player, even for it's like for clearing the cap, I like this move, and I still don't know the return. So I could get burned very easily if they take away. I don't know. I wouldn't like Tori Krug, so let's say so. So that wouldn't be. But I think they have enough left-handed Ds right now, even when we account for Lion Bixel. So this is really fun. Actually, we are talking about it. And it's happening. So I'm refreshing Twitter and Instagram and all of this. So actually, we can have a first scoop on this as well.
Yeah, it looks like the Sens are sending a draft pick with Matthew Joseph to the Blues as well for future consideration. So, yeah, St. Louis is making some moves, and that's no surprise. I mean, they have been pretty transparent with what they're trying to do. They're trying to kind of just clean house in a lot of ways and go from there. Alrighty, it is official now. The Dallas Stars have traded Radek Faksa to the St. Louis Blues for future considerations. I was a bit foolish for throwing Krug or Parayko out there, but hey, you're right. I wanted a blockbuster trade. I wanted earth-shattering news that Dallas went out and and got somebody insane. But makes a ton of sense probably to make some more room for Thomas Harley. But Dallas still needs a couple of forwards now, probably. So there are a lot of moving parts now here in the next few days. What do you make of the transaction there?
It's actually a really good transaction to give up Radek Faksa and not pay anything for somebody to take. That's actually really good because you get the cap space back. And now the question remains, are there more moves to make? Because as we mentioned, like there are possible targets that the Stars could actually go for, or they will wait until the season starts, because honestly, they don't need Radek Faksa that much. He was scratched in the playoffs. The maybe question is he going to be, I would say, exchanged for by Mate Blumel on the fourth line, so the Sam Steele will center this line, or are they going to sign somebody as well for the forward group as well to replace, or maybe they will use Oscar back or somebody like that. So that still remains to be seen. But I think this really much connects to Thomas Harley and what he can get, because I projected him like 1 hour ago before this trade was announced that I projected Thomas Harley to sign at about 2 years, 3.75 million. But this opens up a way where they can sign him long term. So I wonder if this is the angle, because if Thomas Harley is signed, let's say for 6 years or 5 years or 7 years, maybe even 8, he could get it back. Like he really could earn from 6 to 7 million per. So this really opens up the space for them to do it. And I would be happy if I projected this, I would say this middle scenario, if they sign him for 4 years at around 4, maybe 5 million per. So he could still end up as RFA on the deal. It's very much how Jason Robertson was signed for 4 years and still will end up, I would say, in this. Oh no, he won't end up as an RFA anymore. I don't think so. But let me just check up on this. I'm not sure when Jason Robertson is going to be RFA. But when it comes to Thomas Harley, I know that if they sign him for 4 years, he could still end up RFA, and they could even still save some cap space on the way to trade deadline. Oh yeah, you see, Jason Robertson is going to expire as RFA as well. So it's basically the same scenario with Thomas Harley that could happen.
Yeah, it opens up with the Faksa trade just under $8 million of cap space for the Stars. And yeah, you mentioned this may open up an avenue to sign him a bit for a longer term. And yeah, you could probably look around $6 million somewhere in that area for, you know, in 5, 6 years. Well, I mean, yeah, it could be 6 to 8 years. And then you feel pretty good about having Miro and Harley for the next few seasons. So interesting thing there. I'm pretty cool that it just kind of dropped in the in the middle of today's episode.
It's
So
also interesting
perfect.
how the mind works. Like we
Yeah.
usually like expect some big return
Yes.
back,
Yes.
and it's totally normal. It's totally like human, and then
Mhm.
realize, oh yeah, I mean, this is probably still like the step one. The step
Yes.
one was to shed some salary to
Mm.
get Harley signed, to be more flexible come trade deadline, and maybe for like step two, acquire some impact player on the D
Yeah.
because yeah, the Stars actually signed some replaceable guys on D for a lot of money. They could pan out. I mean, I think they are hoping one of the guys will pan out, either Dumba or Lyubushkin, and then they can consider it as a good trade off. If both of them pan out, that's gonna be perfect, but it's really like highly unlikely at this point.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's gonna be really fascinating. And I'm gonna need to update my opening night roster
Yes.
predictions. So
This has been amazing. I know we went about an hour once again, which is great. So this will probably be a two-part interview, but so much happened within the within the hour, including a Radek Faksa trade. You're right. Thank you so much, as always. Such a pleasure to have you on, and I'll bring you back on for sure as we get closer to the season. But thanks for reaching out because, like many Stars fans, you were fired up to talk some free agency as well.
absolutely, Joey. Thank you for having me.
Alrighty, Stars fans, thank you once again. Please be sure like, comment, subscribe, show your Rise some love. He's available on Twitter, as you all know. I'm sure you already give him a follow, but sauce him a follow. I'll put the link in the description as well. And yeah, Jim Nill gave us plenty to talk about in the next month or two, so we'll continue these conversations in the off season. Have a great rest of your day, and we will see you tomorrow. So long, Stars fans.